Welcome to 5 Good Minutes. You're listening to today's inspirational message on the book of Galatians with Jonathan Thiede.
Welcome to 5 Good Minutes, where this week we are talking about Paul's letter to the Galatians in chapter 5. My name is Jonathan Thiede, and I'm thrilled to be with you this week. Today we will be looking simply at verse 1. Before we get into that, you'll notice we're going to be talking a lot about freedom today. So I want to introduce this by asking the question, what do you think about when you hear the word freedom? Maybe you think about it from a historical perspective, and if you're an American like me, you of course think of 1776, how our forefathers wanted freedom from tyranny. Maybe you're a little bit more modern in your thinking, and you think about it in a postmodern sense, that you might not be experiencing freedom from tyranny, but you are experiencing the desire to be free from the established norms or established roles that people have for you. Or maybe you're a little bit more simple like I am, and you think about freedom simply as individual freedoms. You think about when you were a kid and you couldn't leave the table until your food was all done, and you thought, wow, wouldn't it be great to be free from my parents? Or maybe you got in trouble in school and you thought, wouldn't it be great to be free from my teachers or the authorities in my life? The point is that we all experience this idea of freedom. Freedom is not merely something debated about in the classroom, but it is something that we experience. And the Christian life, according to the Apostle Paul, is marked by a particular kind of freedom. And this particular kind of freedom is a freedom from keeping the law on our own. Freedom from keeping the law on our own. Let's dive into today's scripture in Galatians 5:1. Paul writes, "It is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Stand firm then, and do not let yourselves be burdened again by a yoke of slavery." Let's break this simple verse down. In the beginning of this verse, we get a reason that Christ has died. Have you ever thought about that? Why did Christ need to die? Why did Jesus need to die on a cross? Well, Paul tells us, he says, it is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Why has Christ died? So that we might be free. Well, natural question is free from what? We're free from keeping the law on our own. I think this is where the context is so helpful, because Paul is not merely writing to people today. He is writing to a specific audience. And his audience is this church in these Galatians who had been experiencing some slavery to the law, because people were coming in, they were saying, this Jesus thing is good, but you'll actually be a real Christian if you follow the Old Testament law. And so Paul's coming in and he's hearing this and he's incredulous. He's actually quite angry at this, that they are going backwards. And so this brings up another question. Is the law bad? And Paul is saying all throughout this letter, the law is not bad, but we burden ourselves with it when we feel like we have to follow it to be saved. That as Christians, we have a positive relationship with the law, but that positive relationship is not because of our own works, but only because of what Christ has done. When we believe that we are saved by the law, when we are saved by our own works, we are actually burdening ourselves with a yoke of slavery. Why does this matter today? This matters because due to our flesh, due to the sin still present in our lives, we are always tempted to go backward. We are always tempted to forsake what Jesus has done in favor of what we have done for God. We always try to earn God's love through good behavior, through having good morals, through being in the right party, being the right kind of people. And when we try to earn God's love through our own behavior, our own morals, our own doctrine, our own beliefs, we actually trample on what Jesus has already done. Notice what Paul is not saying is that it is wrong to live a good life, but he's saying if that is our reason why God would accept us, we have gone astray. When we try to earn God's love, we trample on what Jesus has already done. And so a few questions for us to meditate on. First, how are you tempted to earn your way to God's love? Second, is your Christian life marked by freedom in God's love, this freedom that Paul's talking about, or does it feel more like slavery to the law? And then finally, why does God love you? If you had to give a reason for God to let you in, would you point to your own record? Would you point to your own deeds? Or would you point to Jesus's? Jesus lived a perfect life according to the law, to fulfill the law on our behalf. Let's stand firm today and remind ourselves that we are saved by Christ alone.
Thanks for joining us here today. There's a lot of great content to explore on Orchard Hill Plus and on the Orchard Hill main feed from the weekend. Have a great day.